Hello and welcome to this week's crypto update. So, what's happening in the marketplace out there? Have we any positive news in the crypto space? What's happening in the macro environment, and does it really matter? Well, let's have a look. You would imagine, with all the positive news that we've been having in the last days, weeks, and months, that Bitcoin would be absolutely pumping. We have seen governments, industry, the biggest businesses in the world, all talking about crypto. They're either buying crypto or they're setting up platforms that include crypto. It's literally couldn't be a more bullish time. The US president is buying crypto. They have a company that's buying crypto. They have brought in a Bitcoin reserve, which was seen as being the be all and end all. But yet we see Bitcoin going down. It's come from almost 110,000 to in around 80,000 now and has been as low as 76,000. What is going on? Has there been some negative news over the last week about Bitcoin? Well, let's have a look. We have Loomis, who is one of the people who was backing a Bitcoin reserve from the very beginning, since it's been announced. And what they announced was that they're having the reserve, and for now, what they're going to do is keep the 200,000 Bitcoin that they have in play, but not necessarily go out and buy more. They may add over time, but no plan in place right now, and certainly nothing aggressive. What she is putting forward is that they should make a massive Bitcoin purchase, and is talking that they should buy 1 million Bitcoin, buy it and hold it for a minimum of 20 years. Of course, that would be extraordinarily bullish because it would be a lot of buy pressure, but also it's buy and hold, so it's not going to be sold anytime soon. This would be extraordinarily bullish were that to happen, and this is something that she's absolutely putting forward. Very bullish. What else? We also see that the Russian central bank is now allowing crypto purchases. It wasn't that long ago where Russia were very anti-crypto and certainly Bitcoin. Now, the Russian central banks are allowed to buy crypto. This is another extraordinary bullish event. Can it get any better for Bitcoin? Well, once again, Strategy are out there, formerly MicroStrategy, who have already spent 42 billion on buying up Bitcoin and have done that over a period of over 3 years, are now out raising another 21 billion to do what? Buy more Bitcoin. It is likely that, first of all, that they will raise that, and secondly, I believe if they do, that they'll probably put that money into Bitcoin between here and the end of the year. Extraordinary bullish news for Bitcoin. Again, Bitcoin, you would imagine, if you were looking at this news, you would say it would be going through the roof. Instead, it's retracing. What's going on? On top of all of this, we've had other positive news for risk on assets. That is that the CPI, the core price index, which is an inflation measure that the Fed very closely watch, has actually reduced. It's come down from 2.9% to 2.8%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually reducing. It has been increasing for the last number of months. Also, the core CPI has also reduced by 0.1%. Why is this so positive? Well, the Fed. Everyone is looking towards the Fed in the hope the Fed will start reducing interest rates. But the Fed can only start reducing interest rates if a couple of things happen. Number one, inflation would need to be coming down, not up. It has been creeping up. Now, it appears it might be starting to reduce. At the same time, the jobs market would need to be weak. If you were to believe their numbers, it's been very strong all along. However, there are now some numbers coming in that would suggest that maybe that's softening. On top of that, we've got Doge. Elon Musk is heading Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency. And what is he doing? He's trying to find ways of saving money for the US taxpayer. How's he doing that? At the moment, he's going out and he is firing a hell of a lot of people in governmental jobs. Why is this important? Number one, the biggest new employer of people over the last 24 months has been government jobs. So not only are they stopping that from happening, they're actually cutting jobs as well. What's that likely to do to the overall jobs numbers? You would expect it would weaken the numbers. So if you have the jobs numbers weakening sufficiently and inflation coming down significantly, it isn't yet, but if it were to do that, then that puts the Fed in the absolute sweet spot for them to start reducing interest rates and maybe even start put on the money printers, something that would be extraordinarily bullish for risk on assets, including Bitcoin and crypto. So while all that's happening, you would expect all this would be positive news and Bitcoin would be pumping. And as we've seen, it's not. Other positive news on the back of that is the probability of a May rate cut has surged to almost 29%. That's 3 times higher than just 1 month ago, and expectations of 3 cuts by the year end has jumped 5 times up to 32%. So now all of a sudden people are expecting rate cuts. The Fed are meeting in the next few days, and we will see what the thought process is. No one's expecting rate cuts in March, but what he says will be picked apart word by word to see, does it look like they're moving towards rate cuts in May? And if it is, then you could see a positive momentum in the markets. But there is something that trumps all of this news, and that is, of course, Trump tariffs. What's happening? So Trump's tariffs is causing utter chaos across the world. There's tariffs being put out left, right, and center with their biggest trade partners, whether that's China, Mexico, Canada, Europe, and anywhere else. What this causes is incredible uncertainty. And with uncertainty, the markets don't like that, and the markets tend to pull back. And that is why we're seeing the stock market, the S&P, all pulling back significantly. Bitcoin and others all pulling back because of that uncertainty. Now people are talking about the potential for a recession and everything else that was not being mentioned before. So what is likely to happen, and where do we go from here? And why is this happening, and why is Trump doing what he's doing? What is he doing? We've spoke about Doge. They're out cutting tens of thousands of jobs. That reduces the numbers on the jobs market. A global trade war, slapping trade tariffs left, right, and center, causing that uncertainty. And on top of that, creating geopolitical uncertainty with the fight with Zelensky on national TV. Is all this being done on purpose? And if so, why? Well, if we look at the 10-year Treasury, the 10-year Treasury is usually important because this dictates the amount of money and interest rates that will be charged on loans throughout. Who's got a really big loan? The US government. What's its size? There's 9 trillion of that coming up for renewal this year, 7 trillion of that in the first 6 months. If you were facing that type of a bill, what would you want? You'd want lower interest rates. What has Trump been asking the Fed to do since before he got into office? Reduce interest rates. Have they done it? No. So Trump is creating a situation in which it's going to happen anyway. Reduce interest rates, roll over their debt at a lower rate, closer to 3%. So while it's reduced from around 5%, I think they want to get this around 3%. Before he stops creating that uncertainty, and before we see maybe the tariffs being lifted and so on. So what's the game plan and what's likely to happen? I believe, the other thing I want to touch on is the dollar. I mentioned a number of weeks ago that the likes of China and other countries around the world want to start to stimulate their economy. How do they do that? By printing more of their own currency. But if they do that while the dollar is really strong, they risk getting depegged in the dollar, and they certainly don't want that. So while China's internal economy has been suffering hugely, and now there's tariffs put on their exports, which is going to affect them even more, they're now in a position where they really, really want to start to print, but they can't while the dollar is strong. As you can see from this chart, the dollar is reducing significantly, and this could open up the door quite soon for them to be able to do what they want to do, which is stimulate their economy, which means printing money, creating huge liquidity bursts around the world. So here's what I think is happening. I think, number one, we have Trump, who is trying on purpose to bring down interest rates. He tried to get the Fed to do it. Now he's taking control. How's he doing it? Trade tariffs. On top of that, the trade tariffs puts him in a really strong negotiating position where he's trying to reshore jobs into the US to help the US economy and the US worker. And of course, then US taxes. The trade tariffs are working for him in a couple of ways. It gets him to reduce interest rates, which helps the massive loans that they have to roll over this year. Number two, puts them in a hugely strong negotiating position with all of these countries in order to get what he wants from them. And at the same time, while the dollar is strong, these countries can't print to stimulate the economy. I think we're going to see this sideways for a couple of weeks and even a couple of months, because he's going to want to see that 10-year Treasury even lower than it is. The other countries are going to need the dollar to be even lower than it is, and interest rates are going to need to be lower than they are. While trade wars are happening, it's unlikely, many people believe, that tariffs are going to be inflationary. So instead of that inflation number coming down, it could tick back up again, which will stop the Fed from reducing interest rates just yet. However, once Trump has finished with his negotiation and got what he wants from these various entities, whether it's Europe, China, Japan, Canada, Mexico, and others, then when he's got what he wants, he can reduce the tariffs, encourage further to a point where they can get peace, maybe in the Middle East, maybe in Russia, both usually deflationary, reduce tariffs, all which, and then pull back from Doge. Get the job done quick. We'll see Doge being very aggressive for the next couple of months. And when he's happy with all of that, pull back from Doge, pull back from tariffs, reduce the dollar. What happens then? The Fed can start to reduce interest rates, start printing. The rest of the world can start printing to boost their economies. And we see the mother of all liquidity coming into the market. High liquidity brings huge possibilities for risk on assets, whether that's the stock market or the crypto market or so on. And here's the trueflation numbers that we've seen out there. So what happens? I think we get to the point where the Fed, the People's Bank of China, the ECB in Europe, the BOJ, the Bank of Japan, will all start easing in around the same time. Massive liquidity into the market, massive boost for the stock market, crypto, and so on. But first, we have the pain. We see the pain happening right now. We've seen Bitcoin come back to about 76,000. I was calling for 74 3 months ago when it was up around 105, 110,000. We've got down to those markers. I do believe we're going to see some sideways action. I think it's very possible that we wick down as far as 69,000 along the way here. But I think we go sideways between sort of 70, 75, 80, 85k for weeks, maybe even a few months. At the same time, alts get hammered even more. That creates the buying opportunities like we've never seen before. Maybe now is a time to be getting in or DCAing in if you think it's a time for you. It depends on where your overall model is, your risk factor, your current portfolio, etc. But certainly I'll be watching this space now. Don't necessarily try and catch the bottom. Decide if now is a good time for you to buy or if you think it's going to go further. Don't be trying to hit the absolute bottom. Buy when there is value. Because I think the vast majority of the world believe that whatever price we're at right now, while it could go lower, in the long term, it's highly likely to be much higher for Bitcoin and any quality crypto projects. So I'll leave you with this. And I think this applies to the crypto market as well. The stock market is the only place things go on sale and everyone runs out of the store screaming. They don't buy when the prices are down. They only buy when the market is taken off. So with that, hope you found that useful and we'll talk to you all very soon.